I periodically go into ruts, but I think I finally developed a consistent way to quickly get out again. And it looks like this. Okay, let me explain. This is you in a rut, stuck in the same cycle going around and around. With time, our comfort zone starts to shrink, giving us that claustrophobic feeling like I can't stay here, but not knowing how to leave. Now, a mistake I used to make is I'd try to just blast out of a rut by taking massive disciplined action. And occasionally that worked, but many times what would happen is I would run out of steam and then just plummet back to reality, even more discouraged and unmotivated than before. So I'd like us to consider an easier, more sustainable method, one that will get you out and keep you out of a rut. The first of the 3 exercises that we will use to break out of this cycle and expand our comfort zone is implementation intentions. I've talked about this before on my channel, but I'm gonna reference it here again because this is so powerful and it can be used in so many different ways. Implementation intentions is basically a fancy way of saying when/if this happens, then I will do this. I recently applied this to a particular rut I've been in for quite some time, which is getting out of bed on time. Here's how I used it. Every night before I go to bed, I say 2 when-then statements. And they are, when I get out of bed to turn off my alarm clock, then I will turn on my bed lights. When I turn on my bed lights, then I will sit on the side of the bed. This basically single-handedly solved this problem for me because after those 2 tiny actions that I kind of pre-programmed, I have enough momentum to just keep going. Implementation intentions are a consistent little way to combat a rut because we know what we should do. I know that I should get out of bed on time, I should work out, I should not stay up late scrolling social media, etc. The problem is not that we don't know what to do, the problem is that we're stuck in a cycle of inaction and low motivation. These little actions slowly break that cycle, making it more and more sustainable and easier to start. Maybe you would say that you're a shy person and you want to get better at greeting people. So figure out what that trigger is, maybe it's arriving at your job, and then link the action you want to do to that trigger. So it could be something as simple as, when I clock in at my job, I will say hi to my coworkers before sitting down at my desk. This is the first of 3 ways to start chipping away at the rut that we are in. And it's profoundly powerful because, like I said, we know what to do, but the problem is we don't identify when we're gonna do something. When you try this out, it almost feels like you're pre-programming your future self to take action. It's so bizarre that it works as well as it does. Here's the next practice to help us break out of a rut and stay out. Learn something new every day. The most dangerous rut is being stuck in a bad thought pattern. We have to learn how to break our thought ruts as well, because they create poor choices which compound the problem. And the best way to break out of this cycle and prevent going back is to consistently expand our way of thinking. And I'm not talking about the news or letting the TV play in the background. I'm talking about intentional learning, even if it's just a few minutes of reading every day. Here's why this works. If we don't learn new information or encounter new ideas, our comfort zone will continue to shrink as we only consider things that we are positive are correct. When we become too scared to think differently, we also stop acting differently. We take the safest path, the one of least resistance. After all, new information can be scary because it might threaten our way of thinking or something that we believe. But think about it. You've met people that do this, people that are good thinkers. They aren't threatened by new ideas and they ask good questions. These people are consistently expanding their world because they've built this habit of learning. There's lots of different ways that you can do this. You can use something like short form, which has book summaries, so a very condensed version of a book. Everand is a great audiobook subscription service, or you can use things like YouTube, Skillshare, etc. But whatever you use, make sure you're using it intentionally, because a good idea will never interrupt you. And the main reason for this is it's impossible to not expand your comfort zone by learning new things. Learning in and of itself is an uncomfortable process. You have to first acknowledge that you don't know everything, and that's really good for us to do. Now, here's the last way to get out of a rut. The do something principle says that when you're feeling stuck, just do something, anything. to get you moving. It sounds overly simple, right? But just like you can't steer a parked car, if you want to change, you have to be moving, even if it's just a tiny little bit. So by making ourselves do something, even if it's tiny, it gets us moving, and then we can begin to change direction. This one is a really good one to start with because sometimes our work this week was just terrible and it's Saturday and the only thing we want to do is lay around and do nothing at all. But we know that we should probably work around the house, fix the lawnmower, etc. So when that's you, instead of trying to conjure up lots of willpower to go do the big thing that you're putting off, start by doing something just to get you moving. Could be doing your laundry, washing the dishes, putting away your homework, just something to build momentum. And once you do, you'll find that it's much easier to keep going. And often you'll end up working your way up to that big task that you are putting off or that you need to do. The other reason this works is it's intentional. Intentionality, even in tiny ways, is key to breaking out of a rut. Because when we sit back and let our circumstances begin to dictate our lives, it's very hard to regain that control. If you'd like to do something right now to kickstart this process, start with something really tiny, like signing up for my newsletter, which is completely free, linked in the description. Sorry, I kind of just had to plug that.